As you work in the graph editor more and more, you'll find that these handles can be a little bit fiddly. And sometimes all you want is for these two handles to be exactly the same length. And the best way of doing that really, instead of just eyeballing it, is by typing some values in. And you type those values in by using what's called the keyframe velocity. If you are already inside the graph editor, you can right-click on a keyframe and then go to keyframe velocity. If you're in the normal timeline, so let me come out of the graph editor here. If you're in the normal timeline, all you would need to do would be to hold down Alt on the keyboard and then double-click on the keyframe, and it opens up this keyframe velocity dialog box. The keyframe velocity tells you what's happening with the keyframe under the hood. So this is really all you need to know about the keyframe. Now up here, it tells us the type of the keyframe, so it's the rotation keyframe I clicked on. And because it's the first keyframe I clicked on, the incoming velocity, so the speed coming into this keyframe, is set to 0, because there's nothing else happening before this keyframe. Whereas the outgoing velocity is set to a certain number. Now the degrees per second is the speed, so this controls the angle of the curve. So let me actually go back to my graph editor to show you what's happening. So if I go back to the beginning here and then maybe zoom in a little bit. And if I go and right click on this keyframe and then go to keyframe velocity, it'll bring up the same window again. The degrees per second, the first property here, is controlled by the angle of this handle here. So if I go and set this, let's say to 25, and then press OK, you see that the angle of the line changes, but not the length, because the length is controlled by the influence. So if I go and right click on this again, and then go to keyframe velocity again, the influence is the length of this line. So if I set this to, let's say, 20, and then if I press OK, that now changes the influence to be shorter, so it's 20% now. And if I want this exact same thing to happen here as well, I can now select this keyframe, and then right click, and then go to keyframe velocity. And in this case, I'm not dealing with the outgoing velocity because nothing's happening after this keyframe. All I had to do is to go to incoming velocity because we're going into this keyframe, just like you would ease into it. I'm just going to go here, change my degrees to 25, and then the influence to 20. And that's how you create exactly the same handles on either side of the graph.